Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. And welcome to the Crypto and Cognac podcast show. As always, I am Illuminati, and we are talking crypto. We are drinking cognac as usual. And yeah, we're going to have a very, very enjoyable time with each other as we do the needful. Guys, I am absolutely buzzing, right? You know what I mean by buzzing? Because something crazy has happened in the last week. I don't know if you all know, right? You all know I'm obsessed with cognac. You all know I'm obsessed with Hennessy, right? But what you all may not know is that I am slight to moderately obsessed with LeBron James, right? Not only do I consider him to be the greatest of all time when it comes to the game of basketball, the game that I love, the game that I spent all of my high school years obsessing about, except for the fact that I was a few inches too short. But honestly, he's an amazing guy, just from me on the outside looking in. Amazing father, amazing husband, amazing citizen, philanthropist, supporter of his community. The bro has not put one wrong foot just about yet, and my fingers are crossed. I'm so nervous as these names pop out of Diddy's closet. But before we talk about that, we're going to be celebrating today because LeBron James has officially partnered with Hennessy, the GOAT of cognacs, with the GOAT of basketball. Could it get any better, right? Listen, the only thing that would make this any better is if they sign Cristiano Ronaldo as well. But we know Christy don't drink alcohol. Is this one flaw? But I cannot wait. I legit cannot wait to get myself that LeBron James by Hennessy, that King by Cognac collectible in the VS very special and VSOP. Listen, and of course, I'm going to bring it right here and show off to you guys, share with you guys, but you're not getting none, right? Another one to add to the collection. But let me get straight into what we hear about. As always, before we jump into it, let's do some housekeeping, right? Cheers. So, I am not a financial advisor. This is not a financial advisory podcast. This is not a financial advisory show. So nothing that I share or Steven puts in the chat or Eddie talks about in the chat should be misconstrued as financial advice. Do your own research. This is all about the same way we have our yak, is the same way we have our cognac conversations. It's all about information, conversation, education. The ICE rule. Remember it. Don't go and say Illuminati say, right? What we're going to do is share a little bit. I'm going to share a little bit about what I know and what I've researched. You're going to share a little bit with me. And hopefully on the other side of that, we have a better awareness of this crazy cryptic world of cryptocurrency, right? Today, we are talking about mBridge project. For those of you who have not heard about mBridge is basically a cross-border payment system that will be utilizing multiple CBDCs, central bank-backed digital currencies, and it is a collaboration between the central banks of Hong Kong, China, Thailand, the United Arab Emirates, and the BIS, the Bank of International Settlement. For those of you who have been with us for a few seasons, I did a whole podcast episode on the Bank of International Settlements. But the project aims to streamline international transactions, making them faster, cheaper, and more efficient than our current international payment and money transfer system, which is the SWIFT system. Now, we all know if you go to your bank and you have to send money outside of your country, they ask you for what the SWIFT code is for your bank, the SWIFT code for your intermediary bank. And that is because that whole system operates on, is run by the SWIFT system, right? Now, the intention clearly is to bring a pilot, a MVP, a minimum viable product to market by sometime about now, right? 2024. I think it was supposed to launch mid 2024, but it probably hasn't yet. And one of the key things is that this is expected to be a wholesale CBDC platform. So what that means, it is not for retail use. For right now, it's for central banks to trade and to transfer payments between each other, right? The main issues, I wouldn't say issues, but the main things that we're going to talk about today as it relates to mBridge, its CBDC, we're going to talk a little bit about how it's going to potentially disrupt the traditional financial system. We're going to talk a little bit about the BRICS countries and their involvement with it. We're going to talk a little bit about the impact of crypto on crypto, obviously. We're going to talk a little bit about the global financial system and how that might think, and the geopolitical implications of this. And first and foremost, we're going to talk, like I just said, about how mBridge is going to impact the SWIFT system. So SWIFT has long been the backbone of global cross-border payments, but it's centralized, which means it is slow, it is very expensive, it is, I guess, most importantly, and I think what may have been the driving force behind the creation of something like mBridge, is it is easily and oftentimes politically controlled, right? And I guess what they are seeking to do with the CBDC mBridge, the CBDC cross-border platform of mBridge, is to create a platform that is a little bit more decentralized and allows a lot more participation by those governments, central banks outside of the big Western economies, right? mBridge is actually built, I think, on the EVM platform. It is somewhat of a Ethereum clone, so that is very interesting, and I think it bodes well for any future hopes of interoperability between mBridge for retail participants with our current crypto infrastructure. So that's one thing. But what we've seen with this mBridge creation, what we've seen with the moving away from the SWIFT and the political control that the US has, is another point that I've brought up here before, and that is as it relates to de-dollarization, right? The US dollar has been a focal point in global trade, right? Which has given the US tremendous amount of influence over international finance and over the political direction of many countries who want to be able to trade not just with the US, but with any other country, because it all has to be done through the US dollar, right? The US and their Western allies control the flow of finance. They manage sanctions and enforce sanctions using this dollar control, and basically they control almost all transactions, all global transactions, through the dollar dominance. And what we've seen happening over the last few years is that a lot of countries have woken up to the risk associated with that, especially, for example, the BRICS countries, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, particularly because Russia, as one of its members, has felt the hard whip of US and Western sanctions across its back since the conflict between themselves and the Ukraine started a couple of years ago. So Russia has pretty much been cut off from global trade because they can't trade in the US dollar. They've been cut off from the SWIFT platform as a form of political punishment for basically their geopolitical actions, right? And we've seen a lot of people commenting about the favoritism shown. It's not just about you break the law and you have to suffer the consequences. We've seen the US's friends in the Middle East not face the same kind of sanctions, obviously because the big brother controls the flow of things and how sanctions are managed, executed. Is that the right word I'm looking for? Enforced is the right word, right? So what we're going to see potentially with mBridge is a little bit of independence, a little bit of, I guess, financial sovereignty by countries outside of the Western grouping. What we're going to see is stronger economic integration, where we're going to see the BRICS member states, and we've seen more and more countries joining every day, are now going to be able to foster greater financial trade across each of their territories without having to rely on Western control, without having to pay the cost associated with that Western control and Western influence. Now, what does that look like for emerging economies like the Caribbean, emerging economies like Africa, emerging economies like Southeast Asia and other parts of the world, where they don't have to bear that cost, where they can trade with whoever they want, how much ever they want, without the influence of the US and their Western allies. Now, obviously, this is built on a crypto platform, right? Which probably is going to make it less attractive to a lot of people, less attractive to certain Western governments straight off the bat. But it could work. It could be a double-edged sword for us here in crypto, right? Why is that? Because we know that there are two ways that the current crypto industry is going to interact with the traditional financial space, right? It's either gonna coexist or it's gonna be in competition, right? And while mBridge is built on Ethereum, it is a CBDC, it is centralized, right? And it will be government backed, obviously. So how does its integration potentially offering a substitute to the growing crypto space, especially the segments of the crypto space like the word is slipping me, like stable coins, how does that gonna inhibit the growth of the stable coin economy? Is it gonna be a gateway drug that is gonna bring a lot more people into the traditional crypto space after they get to experiment a little bit using these CBDCs? Or are we gonna see a lot more controls as CBDCs are used to on-ramp to the crypto space, a lot more tracking, because we know the blockchain never lies. the blockchain never forgets. So if you use one of these CBDC platforms like mBridge or any individually branded CBDC by one of these countries to onboard to the crypto space, does that now allow the government to track your every move in the crypto space? And of course, we have long had this raging debate about how will crypto gain mass adoption? Will it be through some version of centralized adoption, or are we going to continue down the purest part of decentralized cryptocurrency, right? So yeah, I know you guys been heating it up in the comments, so I'm just gonna check in. Yo, what's up, Marcus? I am from Trinidad and Tobago, so yes, we are from the islands. The whole idea of the podcast is to try to translate what is happening in the global crypto environment for the Caribbean market specifically, because there are certain elements that are unique to us here in the region that don't get discussed in some of the bigger platforms. So that is my minor mission. Yeah. For sure, we was in that Hennessy DJ event soon, Stephen. And guys, as always, we have to remind you, the same thing we say about drinking, the same thing we say about DJing. Do it responsibly. Do not degen drunk. Do not drink and degen too desperately, right? So that is what's up with that. Jumping straight back into mBridge, I think what we are seeing happening already, what we are seeing fears grow about particularly, is the global financial system is becoming more and more fragmented, right? And something like mBridge could lead to an even more fragmented global financial system. We have already seen that a lot of these major economies, these major world powers, have significant trust issues around each other. Is something like a decentralized CBDC platform that they all kind of own and participate in, is that going to be the platform that helps to engender that trust, or are we going to still see a heavy reliance on something that is totally transparent, that allows total lack of controls, everyone can participate, something like Bitcoin? Is that still going to be continue to dominate the space? Is this intended to compete only with the stable coins, or is it intended to operate as a hedge against people moving too quickly into Bitcoin and other major altcoins like it? But I guess we're gonna have to wait. We're gonna have to watch. We're gonna have to wait and see. But what is for certain is that immediately mBridge is going to pose a major challenge to the Western traditional financial and global trade structures like SWIFT. We're gonna see emerging economies like BRICS adopt mBridge, and we might see three parallel financial ecosystems, because we're going to see the traditional, we're going to see the mBridge CBDC backed ecosystem, and then we're going to see crypto operating maybe somewhere in between both, or on the edge of both, or maybe mBridge, I guess you could perceive that as being more in the middle. So I think more and more competition is what we can expect to see. But ultimately, I think trust and the lack of trust between global superpowers is going to drive the adoption of crypto as a hedge, as Bitcoin as digital gold. I think we're gonna see, as countries stop trusting each other, we're gonna see their populations stop trusting them. And that is where I think we're gonna see an explosion in demand for cryptocurrencies that are not controlled in any way by governments. But in the meantime, we're gonna see, I think, maybe not more, but I think we're gonna see versions of mBridge pop up. I wouldn't be surprised to see something like this pop up in Europe, where European countries can trade with between each other. Something like a digital euro. I wouldn't be surprised to see if the African nations eventually get their act together in terms of partnership, them building something that allows them to trade amongst themselves. But I think what is most interesting about mBridge as a CBDC option is that it is being developed and supported by the Bank of International Settlement, because they are the central bank's central bank. You know what I mean? They are the reinsurer to the reinsurers. So it's kind of interesting to see them kind of deviate, or maybe they see the writing on the wall, and they are looking to diversify their portfolio of support. But interestingly enough, I don't think the US Fed is a part of the BIS, so maybe there's not a direct conflict. So I guess as only time will tell. I think CBDCs, as I've said before, will be a catalyst for global adoption of cryptocurrencies, because once you start playing with it, once you understand that value proposition of immediate settlement, once you start understanding that value proposition of being able to custody your own funds, and not paying exorbitant bank fees and having to be too reliant on the banking industry for custodying your funds, I think you just want to take it even further. So for me, good times ahead. Sounds like good times ahead. So we're going to continue to look on with bated breath, with anticipation, with excitement. And as always, I am going to be here to keep you guys updated on what is going on in this crazy, cryptic world of cryptocurrency. Shout out to everyone in the chat. Shout out to everyone listening, everyone checking in, tuning in. We are counting down. We only have 4 more episodes for season 5. I am excited and I am a little sad that we come into the end, but I already have some really exciting things planned for season 6. Season 5 has been more of an educational monologuing to the cameras. Season 6, we're going to bring back those conversations, especially as the bull run starts heating up. We're maybe going to do a little refresh of the studio. So I'm excited for that. But yeah, I know for season 6, something's not going to change. Obviously, we're going to have some Hennessy. Obviously, I'm going to be here. Obviously, Steven is going to be here. Obviously, Eddie is going to be here. Obviously, crypto is going to be on the topic. And by the time season 6 starts, I suspect we will be well in the throes of a bull run. So, exciting times ahead, guys. And as always, I'm going to be here with you. Adoption, guys, is what? Inevitable. Illuminati out. Be blessed. Cheers. See you guys next week.